truly rare when a game gets remade, and even more rare when that game is just as good and maybe even better than the original. Pulling on the strings of nostalgia is going to be difficult for any gamer, but when a game comes along like Ducktales Remastered, you can have faith that the game is going to be a good adaptation of that original game and an inspired sequel of sorts to that fun adventure you had way back when. Naturally, Ducktales Remastered is a remake of DuckTales on the NES, which was made by Capcom. Remastered here is made by WayForward Games, who have done many great things with old games, including Double Dragon Neon, and even the Adventure Time series of games that's coming out. In case you are sadly unfamiliar with DuckTales, the story revolves around Scrooge McDuck and his three nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, also ducks, and it's all based on the Disney franchise, so it all has a Disney appeal to it where it's very colorful and very child-friendly. DuckTales, the video game, at least the original NES version, is well known by gamers today as being a solid side-scrolling adventure game that featured great action, great gameplay, and, to some people, some of the best music on the system. If you haven't played the game yet, I can assure you that DuckTales on the NES is definitely worth going back, and you should probably play it just to have fun with an old game that's kind of like a Mario game in the sense of its platforming, but it's still wholly original and a very fun, solid title. Now, if you want to bypass all that, which is also totally fine, I'll let you know right now that DuckTales Remastered is a faithful port of that original game, and it expands upon that property brilliantly. One of the first things you're going to notice when you load up DuckTales Remastered is that music. Just give that a listen. If that doesn't bring back memories, then I'm not sure what will. And that's something that's really good about the whole game, the music. It's well known in the original game that the musical soundtrack was one of the best aspects, and they did a really good job with Remastered to make sure that stays the same. Aside from that main intro, there's only a handful of songs to accompany the game's levels, and then an end tune that's equally good, but they're all so good that it's hard to pick which one is your favorite. I mean, you might like the moon level, you might like the jungle, it just kind of depends. For me, I personally really enjoyed, out of all things, the ending. At the very end, the song that plays when you beat the game and the credits roll is really fun. It's a kind of trip through the whole game, what you just played, and it sounds really good, and it's totally worthwhile. You should have a listen.
Whack-a-roody, Uncle Scrooge! I can't move! Me neither. Now I know how a statue feels!
That subtitle of Remaster goes beyond just the soundtrack, and you'll also notice that every character is fully voiced, something that was obviously not possible at all on the NES. Even more astounding, all of the surviving cast members from the original TV show reprised their roles for this game. So when you're hearing Scrooge McDuck, you're literally hearing the original Scrooge McDuck.
Hey, Mr. McD, I thought that crash was rock solid.
The only rocks around here are the ones inside your head.
While the plot of the original game was thin at worst and mediocre at best, with the addition of voice acting, the plot really expands in Remastered, so you actually have reason why Scrooge is doing the things he's doing, why he's going to the moon, why he's traveling around all these places, and just what's happening with Huey, Dewey, and Louie when they're all getting captured and all that jazz. It adds a lot to the game because now there's reasoning behind everything, and it makes the game a bit more cohesive. While everything about the game has been redone and touched up, from a gameplay perspective, things have remained largely the same. Remastered is still a side-scrolling platforming game where you control Scrooge McDuck as he bounces around on the top of the heads of his enemies, hitting them with his cane, slapping rocks, and finding treasure chests. None of that has changed from the original game. Everything just looks nicer and feels just about the same. There's that same level of frustration that can accompany most classic NES games, yet there's still that amount of challenge that you know you can keep going if you just keep trying. Assuring that no level of gamer is left behind, there are 3 difficulty levels that make the game easily approachable for anyone of any skill level, and there's plenty of replayability. So now if you don't know anything about Scrooge McDuck, he loves his money. And as you play the game, you collect all kinds of cash, gold, gems, things like that, and at the end of each stage, when you're in your hub world of sorts, in his office, you can actually unlock all kinds of extras. Original artwork, musical scores, trailers from the original TV show, all kinds of things like that you can purchase, and you're not going to be able to get them all in one playthrough, so you're going to have to play many times, probably at least 3 times to unlock everything, but it's still really fun, and seeing the transition from the 8-bit sprites of the original game to the fully HD version in this one, it's pretty cool to see how it changed like that. Now, I said the gameplay remained largely unchanged, and for some of you that can be a good or bad thing. For the most part, all you're going to do in each stage is just hop around and climb up ladders and stuff, and that can get kind of boring kind of fast. Not making matters any better, the constant poing-poing of Scrooge jumping up and down on his cane can get rather annoying as well. But if you can stick through all of that, you'll find the game very entertaining, and it'll hold you for a few hours, which is just enough time to beat the game, actually. You could say it's over in a duck blur. Being that this is an original NES game, it's not too long, but like I said, the repeated playthroughs you'll need to complete everything 100% extends the life of a game to a solid 15 hours, which is good for any downloadable title. Oh, and if you're really up for a challenge, that last difficulty will test your nerve like no other. Any criticisms for Remastered have to come from the originality that it kept from the NES version. Yes, the game is still somewhat challenging, and people might not like that. Yeah, the game is about Ducktales and Scrooge McDuck. If you don't like them, you're still not going to like them. There's some new things that come by, like the story elements kind of are right in the middle of all your gameplay, and that can throw you off and can be a bit jarring. But other than that, the game is still a solid port, which is unlike anything you really see when this happens. A lot of nostalgia is lost in remastered translations of games, and it's just not there in this one. This remastered version of the game is just as good as the original. I'm not going to say it's better, but it's still a solid platformer that is still enjoyable to this day. If you're a gamer that actually played the original game or watched the TV show, there's really no reason for you not to download Ducktales Remastered. If you have no idea who Scrooge, Huey, Dewey, and Louie and the rest of the gang are, there's still actually really little reason for you not to download the game. It's still a solid, fun game that you can easily spend a weekend playing with and enjoy the entire time. Capturing the essence of the original NES game is much harder than it seems, and the fact that WayForward has been able to do it in such a way that not only extends the life of the original game, but in many aspects makes it better and is a fan service to all the people that liked it before, just makes the game that much cooler. If we can get remakes and remastered ports of games like this constantly, then there's a back catalog of titles that I would just love to see come back to life on Xbox Live or PSN. Oh, one last aspect about Remastered. You can jump in and swim around your vault of money.